Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Six Rings King Show on a new night, Monday night now, baby. We're really excited, actually, to have Eric McLean on the show here, college football analyst, co-host of The Huddle. Coach, yes! All right!
First touchdown of the year.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy. Ha ha. It's a six-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vish, and DJ break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. You see the six-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the Six Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
What's going on?
What's up, Jazz?
On the road again. No
The
Taco
Canes,
Bell.
the
No
Canes
Taco
aren't
Bell
on the
for
road,
today.
though, so that's good.
That's good, yeah. No Taco Bell for you today. Maybe Chick-fil-A a little bit later. Who knows? We'll see. No, definitely not Popeyes. That's for sure.
Oh, come on, man. It's a better sandwich.
No chance. Not even. We're not getting into it, but it's
Yeah,
not
no, we
even
have more
close.
important things to talk about.
Yes, sir. Hey, so obviously, as a lot of us found out, the Canes will be hosting again this year.
Yep.
Regional starting on Friday. So just wasn't sure if we were going to get in as a national seed, as a top
Just
8. And
missed.
we almost did. We just missed it. I mean,
Right.
I was kind of surprised to see Virginia at the 7th slot as opposed to 8,
So-
but I can see why.
So we actually talked about this in our kind of DM chat. A lot of the projections, I think we were clearly the next team in, and
Right.
if we beat Clemson yesterday, it would have been kind of interesting. But all of those projections, because Virginia was clearly the last team out. Like, I don't think there was any chance, and we'll talk about this in a minute. We're lined up with Stanford. That Stanford was not going to be a national seed. They were not going to not have anything on the West Coast. Like, that was happening. So either way,
Which is weird if you look at the map, right? It's like everything's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
No Texas, not even Texas. First time in 10 years. And then speaking of Texas, they're actually in our bracket.
In our bracket, yeah. Yeah, but it was so Stanford was kind of locked in. I think they moved those around a little bit because I do think Stanford has a better resume than UVA anyway. But I think they moved it away because all those projections we saw had us as the 9 because we were clearly the next team out, and Virginia was clearly the last team in to the national seats. They're like, 8 versus 9, but we were talking about this. I don't think they were going to match up 2 ACC schools like that.
Right.
And I think that's why Virginia got bumped up to the 7. But I do think it was between us and Virginia. And it's fair play to Virginia. They swept us. They won the Coastal. I think it would have been hard for me to make a compelling argument that we should have gotten it instead of them. I think had we won yesterday, it would also have made a bit of hard argument to say that we weren't one of the 8 best teams. So It's kind of like, but it was, we ended up 9th. Just to answer Al's question real quick, we're going to get into this in a minute, but we would then host. So if Stanford does
we would host, correct.
We host, yep.
Which we would be the only team to go, well, not necessarily, but we'd be one of the only ones. Oh, yeah, a little salsa dancing action there. We'd probably be one of the only
They used to
ones
play
going
that before our
West
baseball.
Coast.
It's a baseball clip, actually. They used to play that before our baseball games.
That's funny.
So mega. So there you go. Little tie-in.
Look, I'll tell you what though. Like we always talk about how important it really how important is it really for some the top 4 or 5 teams in the ACC to do well in the tournament. I mean, if it's going to make or break whether they get a national seed or not, yeah, it might be important for them to win a few games and even get to a championship game or win it or something like that. But for Miami, let's say, I think that the ACC championship game wasn't a huge deal. I think that had they not won and gone to the final, to the championship in the ACC. They may have been a 10 seed instead. So, it would have changed things around probably for the top 8 as well. So you got to take all that into consideration. But the truth is that I think we were kind of slotted right where we were, going to be anyways. Sans not winning the ACC, right? Had we won the ACC championship, then that might have changed it a little bit. But
it still would have been tough. I think once it became like a zero-sum game between us and Virginia, which is what it felt like.
Yeah.
Again, they swept us. They won the division we're in. It's really hard to say, well, we played better in the ACC tournament, therefore all of that goes away.
Because the regular season means a little bit more, believe it or not, than the championship does, So, than the conference championship. So, not a big deal there.
And that's
so
one of the kind of the ironies, Jazz, to your point, in terms of like the top teams doing well. Like they won't ever admit this, but they 100% are not going to have all of the hosts like be ACC and SEC teams. 7 of the 8 are, but like they weren't going to make like all 8 national seeds, which is why Stanford was basically locked in. Although again, Stanford's resume is stronger, so you are in a way competing against like it's stupid, right? Because Virginia being better actually makes our resume better. But if they were worse, it would actually be better for us, even though that series itself is. So it's just like you end up like doing math on like conference pecking order and all this stuff, which in theory, stronger conference should benefit you. If it's too strong, your resume good enough to be a national seed, which I was probably because they're not going to do it this year with already 3 ACC national seeds.
And by the way, I'm not taking anything away from the SEC, right? It is a good conference, but I think that there's obviously still a little bit of national bias with the SEC having 8 different hosts out of the 16 teams that are hosting a regional. Having 8 teams, I think, is tough because you still look at some of the ACC schools that had a really good season, like your Boston College. You can even throw in Duke if you wanted to there. You can throw in some of these other schools in the ACC that had some really, really strong resumes that could have gotten in and hosted a regional as well. I mean, for crying out loud, you had Alabama at that point, hosting this, as a 16th seed. To me, that was kind of just like a throw in, like, well, hey, who the hell else are we going to pick? Let's throw in Alabama. They're an SEC school. Like, that's how I feel sometimes about how they do these things, because you're talking about a field that is, it looks crazy on the map. Not this map, but if you look at I don't know if you have the other map that they pulled up yesterday and today of where all the hosting is going to be done, and everything is in the southeast for the most part, right? You got the southeast, and then you've got Stanford on the west coast. Not even Texas, who we mentioned.
Yeah,
they haven't had one in 10 years. I mean, this is the first time in 10 years.
Yeah, there's a host site in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and then one in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which are like the west other than Stanford.
Right.
Everything else is like
southeast.
And then I think there's one in Indiana as well, because Indiana State got a host. So
gotcha.
It is
it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. And then it was pretty surprising that, and we can look at our draw right now, it's kind of surprising that we did not get an SEC school. Because to your point, with them dominating the hosting, and we are right here. I'm seeing that. Oops, that made small. Let's go bigger. Right here. This is us. So Miami, Maine, Louisiana, Texas. They won't send an SEC school to another SEC host. So to your point, they had half of them. So the other half then become candidates to take the rest of the SEC schools. But
that's weird.
Yeah, we avoided. I think there was a couple. I was certainly a little bit worried about hitting someone like Tennessee, which feels like they kind of underachieved a little bit this year, but are really talented. Not dissimilar to Ole Miss last year. So I mean, Texas is good. Louisiana is also really good. So it's not an easy draw, but
no, it's a decent draw. I mean, Maine. I know we played them last year in the regular season.
Yeah, handled them pretty easily.
We did, and so obviously that's the whole point of getting the hosting, right? You start off with the 4 seed, who's typically your less, the least talented of them all. But it's still a strong draw. I mean, Texas again, they had to turn over their whole lineup basically, and they started off slow and they kind of figured it out towards the end, and they're playing good baseball right now. And I don't know a lot about Louisiana, and we'll probably get into them more maybe during the week. But another tough team in a mid-major conference that could come out and compete again. You know how I feel about baseball as a whole. There's a lot of talented players out there in schools that aren't Power 5 schools or even Division I schools. So any of these teams could kind of get hot. and win. And that's the name of the game when it comes to baseball, especially in the playoffs. You see it all the time. Look at Ole Miss last year. Went from number one team in the country in the preseason, right, or starting off the season basically, ended up out of the top 25 and the last team to come to get back into the tournament, and then ended up winning it all. So, and they were technically the number nine seeded or the number 9 ranked team in the SEC last year when they started tournament play. So, anything could happen. That's why I feel really good. And I know we'll get into the teams in the bracket now, but that's why I feel really good about this Miami team right now. They're kind of they're playing good baseball at the right time, and I know we give them a hard time, Vish, you and I, about what left on, how many runners do they need to have left on base? Look at this pitch, look at this, look at that, and we give them a hard time. But at the end of the day, they're playing pretty good baseball right now, and some of the pitching is starting to step up. Carson Ligon is back in the fold, along with obviously the other two people. Looks like he's figuring it out somehow.
He pitched a gem against Wake Forest. I mean, that performance against Wake Forest was one of our strongest of the year, just overall.
I've been dying to talk to Gino about that. I want to ask Gino that question about Ligon and Rosario and see what he's got planned for them in the tournament. Because if Ligon can stay healthy and Rosario can stay hot, because I think his last couple outings have been pretty good, then you've got yourself a pretty good staff, right? Like,
yeah, and if you recall, actually, it was the game we were at where Rosario got off to a little bit of a shaky start against Duke, gave up 2 in the first, then settled in, and was doing fine, and then actually got hit by a comebacker and got knocked out of the game as he closed out the third inning. Otherwise, he would have probably gone deeper into that game, only allowing 2 runs. So, he's pitching well. So I guess we can talk about this a little bit. We're going to do another show later in the week where we kind of dove more into these teams, so we know a little bit more about Texas, Louisiana, and Maine. But I mean, they can't. I don't think there's any way Zeal goes on Friday, right? So it's kind of like
against Maine, you're probably going to throw like.
Well, this is the question right now. Like that, right? Well, this is the
maybe
question.
even Ligon. Maybe throw Ligon a couple of weeks, right?
Oh, let me answer his question in the chat. In the chat.
I can't see the chat, so yeah.
Sorry, yeah. When will the day? So we do know the schedule for Friday. It is Texas is playing Louisiana at 2 p.m. on Longhorn Network, and then Miami is playing Maine at 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. This is correct. Tickets are on sale tomorrow at 9 a.m. Yeah, I'm not sure what they do with Game 2 if it's UT involved with Miami. It would be ridiculous to put that on Longhorn Network, but
right. Well, how does that work after that? Is it Miami, the winner of the first game plays the winner of the second game, or the loser?
Yes, it's the winners. So you essentially you go into the winner bracket and the loser bracket, and so the losers will actually play first game on Saturday. It should be 2 and 7 again. They generally use the same timings. So whoever loses that game is out, and whoever wins it gets to Sunday, and then you have the winners bracket game on Saturday night. Winner of that, then both those teams are still alive on Sunday, but then the loser of the Saturday night game plays the winner of the Saturday.
They just got to play more games.
Yeah, and it's that's an elimination game then, and then whoever wins that then has to beat the other team twice, and that's why winning the first 2 is the big thing. It's not just winning the first one doesn't buy you crap if you just turn. In fact, you're probably in worse shape if you win the first game
and then lose one
versus the other way around, because you will have played more recently because you would have played the night game on Saturday and have to turn around and play an early game on Sunday.
Right.
The other team had kind of the whole 24-hour cycle. So, but yeah, if you win the first 2, that's when you take a massive step forward. And last year, unfortunately for the Canes, they didn't do that, and didn't do that barely. I think there's been a lot of the Canes failed talk from last year, and it was 2 1-run games, and it was a washed out weekend where they crammed a bunch of games into a short period of time, and the Canes showed up on Sunday because the Friday got washed out, so they showed up on Sunday in the winners bracket game, so what would be the Saturday night game this year, lost that, had to turn around immediately and play again like 45 minutes later, and lost again, and it was season over. 2 1-run games. That's how quickly it turned.
That's rough.
Yeah, and it's that not having that. First of all, I don't think, just to be blunt, this team does not have the pitching to really play out of a loser's bracket.
Yeah.
So that'll be rough if they don't win the first 2 games. But last year, like, it was just so quickly, it just went. You start the day in the winners bracket, season over by the end of the day, which is not how this tournament is designed, but because of rain, they played a triple header.
Well, let's talk about that pitching because
Yeah, so I want to get
right?
your take. So we were talking a little bit
Yeah.
about that, right? So you said maybe Ligon. So do you think he can go deep into a game though? Because I hate to start someone on that Friday game where I know I'm gonna have to use a lot of the bullpen.
Well, how many innings did he go on Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was?
Wasn't it like 2 and change?
I think it was like 2 1/3 or something like
Yeah,
that, right?
and then Peepo came in and ate the innings.
I think you got to see how he progresses when he throws his bullpens this week. You got to see how he looks. If he looks strong, I still think he's going to have him on a pitch count. Of course, it just depends on how how high his pitch count is, because I'm sure there was some sort of pitch count, right? He might have been on like 45, 50 pitches or something like that. So maybe they bump it up to 65, 70 pitches. And now you're talking about he could potentially go 4 or 5 innings on a pitch count like that. So that's the problem, though, right? It's also a problem because if he is pitching really well, now you just threw potentially your best arm against Maine, right? So it's a difficult situation, but a good situation and a good issue, a good problem to have, because now if you get back Ligon, who potentially was your ace on this staff, right, moving forward, then you've got yourself a little bit of a deeper your pitching situation where you don't have to go to guys too early. That a guy like Torres, right? And of course, I kind of felt bad for him in that Clemson game, but at the same time, like, he's been throwing a lot, man, and that kid needs a little bit of rest.
And I think that's why Gino pulled him, because I mean, look, let's be real. There are arms that we use to just like essentially wave the white flag, and
absolutely,
and that's what we ended up doing. Then I think Gino's like, I'm not. Once that they hit that homer and it was 7-5, I was like, I'm not using this kid's arm anymore in this game.
Right. The problem that I see with going with a guy like Gallo, and it's not because of Gallo's been struggling, because he's actually been pitching really well also, is the fact that you haven't seen Gallo go more than 3 or 4 innings. So now you're talking about the first game potentially being a Johnny Holstaff situation, right, where you're throwing 3 or 4 guys, and now you've used up some of your bullpen.
Yeah, it's a tough.
So the next day, if you get in trouble, if Gage gets in, God forbid Gage gets in trouble early, now you got to go to your bullpen again, and who do you use out of the pen in the long release? So it's a difficult situation.
So let me ask you another question on that, because last week Peepo came out of the pen and did awesome. Shut out Wake Forest for several innings, which was like crazy. But I mean, look, we haven't scouted Maine yet, so I'll need to know a little bit more. But I feel like we talk a lot about, wow, he throws high 90s, but they're able to hit it. Is Maine going to be able to hit? Is his spin rate really going to be in the like?
That's true. That could be a situation where you go to people in the first game. Yeah,
he's an innings eater too. So like, I feel like he could complete game that pretty easily, because he'll go over 100 pitches without issue. Yeah. Like, he's got a rubber arm.
By the way, Gallo's 94 to 96 as well. So that's another guy who throws hard.
Yeah, but Gallo, to your point, I think you kind of convinced me on Gallo, because I was thinking Gallo initially, but your point resonated with me about, like, he's not going to go like 7 or 8 innings. He's going to go 2 or 3, and then you're into the pen, which is what you want to kind of avoid. So maybe Rosario's the guy there, where you're just like, he's going to throw hard. They're going to have trouble catching up with it, even if they hit him for a few long shots. That's his problem, right? You get when you connect, it goes, because he's throwing so hard. We should be able to score enough to handle that, and he can eat a ton of innings for us, and kind of then set us up to have Zeal go Saturday, and then maybe Ligon on Sunday, winners bracket game, right? And
the truth is, let's say Rosario can go 6 or 7 or even 8. He's still going to be throwing just as hard in those later innings. I hate to say it, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that maybe on a Sunday, if you really need him on a Sunday night game, he can come in and get you 1 inning where he just goes right after guys, and
or if not that,
kind of a stopgap.
If you end up in a situation, so what would happen is, let's say the Canes win the first 2 games, then lose the Sunday game, because the other team has to beat them twice. You come back Monday and play that. So definitely, he's a guy who can recover in 3 days and give you an inning if you need to. Where Ligon, there's no way. Like, if he goes once,
not right now.
That's it. Yeah, so there's no way you're doing that. So that's another consideration. If you throw Rosario on Friday, he does have that strong arm where he's able to throw a lot of pitches and seem to bounce back. Where yeah, maybe he is available Monday, even if he throws like 100 pitches on Friday. You know,
Right.
like you said, just for like an out or an inning or something, not for like he's not going to go like another 100
Yeah,
pitches
he's not
on
going to go
Monday.
into 3
Yeah,
innings or anything like that.
but you know, he could maybe get you a couple outs there that you might need. So
Right.
yeah, that's a consideration as well. And also, you know, if you can get him to go on Friday and win that game without burning through a lot of the bullpen, again, you set up for Zeal on Saturday, Ligon on Sunday, and then if you somehow need to win a game on Monday, you know, you haven't thrown Gallo yet, and that's where you can kind of whole staff the thing a little bit at that point.
Right.
Now, this is again all predicated on winning the first 2 games. If they don't, then it's like you get into the Chestnuts.
Then all bets are off. Yeah.
Well, then you're going to start Chestnut in one of these games. I don't think we really want to do that. So, so I mean, I think if you talk about the arm, ideally we can get through the weekend pitching, you know, the Pipo, Gallo, Ligon, Zeal, Torres, Lecarica, Rafe, and Walters. Those are the arms you want to use, and then maybe a little bit of
maybe a little
Cinta if there's a situation there where you can go to where you need to go to a lefty that's not Rafe. Yeah, I think that's probably it, because Chestnut tends to come in out of the pen when we're in trouble. Like we got to pull the starter in the second or third inning for performance. So if we're going to him, it's usually a bad sign. So yeah, I think that's ideally what you do. But if you go into the losers bracket, then you're gonna have to start Chestnut in the game. You're gonna have to find pitching from somewhere. So that is that. But again, we'll have more, I think, later in the week on that in terms of just what the opponent is. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, we're not gonna get into the opponents too much today because I mean we don't know a lot about them just yet, but I'm sure we'll get into that on Wednesday without a problem. What's up, Rasta? What's going on, man? I know. Look, couple more minutes to go here. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, Vish. I wanted to kind of ask you this question because I'm not worried. I actually like what's going on in the lineup, but the only part that really concerns me, believe it or not, is what do you do in that 2-hole, right? Like you had a couple of days where Villegas was swinging the bat okay. In the last couple of games, man, he went 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts last night against Clemson, and he looked bad doing it, right? And to be quite honest with you, a lot of our hitters look bad when they strike out. I feel like they kind of go up there without a plan. When they go up there with a plan, they score 25 runs. When they go up there and they look clueless, they look like a peewee team, you know, they look bad at the plate. And so my question to you is, are you comfortable with the lineup, how he has it now with Renzo DHing and Villegas in the 2-hole, or do you want to see a mix up there where maybe you bump up Renzo, right, and now you can plug in somebody else in left field, maybe you give Dario a chance again? What do you think there? Also, I hate to say this, but Dorian Gonzalez is starting to swing the bat really nicely as well. He's hitting the ball hard to places. He's getting on base. If not, he's figuring out a way, and he's kind of coming around a little bit with the bat also. So now, for depth purposes, Dorian Gonzalez is great, not only defensively, but you saw him come in and you know, hit a couple line drives, and he's looking like he's kind of getting his swing back a little bit also. So I'm happy to see that. But are you okay with the lineup the way you have it now? Kind of play the hot hand. What do you think?
I'm generally okay with it. I agree with you. The question mark is Vegas. Perez also had an atrocious week. For I think 16 or 17 with 10 strikeouts. But I mean, he's by far the best catcher. There's not really a question there. And he'll be fine. He's very resilient, so I'm not really worried about him. But to your point, the reason Villegas gets focus is, one, he's not been good defensively, too. So it's kind of like he's in the lineup for his bat. I mean, frankly, that game went sideways because he didn't catch a fly ball. So now it wasn't an easy play, and it's raining, and I get all that. So it's one that, you know, you expect 60-40 to make, and you needed it to be the 60 that time. It's not like an easy play, but if we had and I don't know that we have another fielder that we can pull in there that's that much better at this point. It's definitely not Carrier or Farrow or someone. But
Dario's probably the best one.
Yeah, he could, but then he also struggled a lot at the plate. I could definitely see Dario as an option there. The other thing you can think about, Renzo has played left field. You can put him in there and use that DH spot for someone else. Or if you want to, you know, using one of your ideas you kind of reference, if you want to move Dorian back to second, DH Sear, and then put Renzo in left field, I think that might make some sense as well. There are options there, especially if you want to keep a left-handed bat in the lineup. That's Dorian at this point. But if they're okay going righty, I mean, it's kind of weird that like Farrow and it started almost the entire year, just disappeared, did not play at all this week, and just completely disappeared.
And then they went to Carrier as opposed to Farrell, which I think Farrell's a more, he's a veteran guy, so his bat.
Yeah, that was an interesting.
But it was,
I think over
weird.
the last couple of weeks we've had significant playing time at Jason Torres, Farrow, Carrier, and then none of them. I mean, at this point, you asked the question, what if we should change it? I would be okay with getting Vegas out of there and maybe putting Farrow for better defense, or what we talked about, putting Dorian in and DHing Sear and then moving Renzo to left field.
Right.
But Gino seems pretty settled on he kind of went with this in every single game in the ACC tournament. I think this is his lineup. I'm just pretty surprised because even we saw like Gabby Gutierrez coming in pitch instead of Farrow, and it was kind of I was kind of surprised at how they went from like starting everyday player to just dropping off the face of the earth, like not even really, they got Ariel Garcia over there. What would you do? Would you leave Viegas out there?
I like your idea, just because of the way that he's been swinging the bat is the whole idea of having Sear DHing again and then Dorian Gonzalez out there at second base. I like what Renzo brings to the table. Excuse me, what he brings to the table. Just his grit, his hustle. He fights at the plate. He gets on base. He finds a way to get things done, and he's not a bad fielder, right? You don't typically think of him as your best fielder, but he's going to go out there. He's going to do okay at left field. I don't think he's going to do bad there. So now you got an opportunity where your defense is going to be stacked up, and you still got Sears bat in there, who, quite frankly, I think that maybe he does a better job when he DHs than when he's playing the field, because he's got to focus on one thing, and that's just swinging the bat. Right. So it could be an opportunity. The other one, I think I want to see Aaron Farrell in there again and getting more at bats.
So where does that come from then? Who does he?
Yeah, that's a situation where maybe what you do is, you start off maybe giving Farrell a shot at DH in game one, and if he just goes over or he stinks it up or something like that, then maybe you make the switch and you put Dorian and second base and DH Sear. So, but I want to see Farrell again. Look, he's hitting over 300, right? He's got 10 home runs, I think 9 or 10 home runs or something along those lines. He's a power bat. He can drive in some runs. I know that last year at FGCU was a different story than this year, but he came here because he can swing the bat and he can drive in runs and he hits for power. And this is one of the best power hitting teams in the country. Put his bat in there. See what he can do. See if he can get a little hot and drive in some runs. He's been out. He's been on the bench for a couple of weeks now, maybe, and this has been kind of the story with right? With their lineup is some guys don't hit for a week or two, and then all of a sudden you put them back in the lineup and they look like a different person. It's happening with Dorian a little bit now. It could fizzle off again. Happened with Lorenzo, right? Happened with Carrier, where you saw him come in the lineup and hit 4 home runs in like 2 days. And then, he kind of fizzled out. Jason Torres, not so much. He just, he's a young guy. So, I mean, Gino's just going to have to keep messing with this lineup a little bit if they have a couple holes that they could, potentially fill with some of the guys that are on the bench. But aside from that, I like the lineup. I don't think it's terrible, but if I had to make a change, maybe the one that you said was putting Renzo in left and Dorian at second base.
So, I agree. Yeah, I think the only position potentially up for grabs is Viegas's, and so then it's really just how do you shuffle around that. Yeah,
exactly.
So there's a question, and I know TBBCB's. I think he also played. If I remember from one of our previous shows, he's very much in the know. I think he's talking about a more, let's just call it, modern approach to setting your lineup up, which Gino does not adhere to. Like, I know why he's saying that, because the current way you set your lineup is your best hitters in the 2-hole. Gino's going old school. No, you bats cleanup. So I think you're third. Where is he? He's at third right now, right? I think.
Yo-Yo?
Yo-Yo, yeah. So yeah, the question is, Gino needs to move the lineup around, put Yo-Yo at 2, Levinson at 3, Sear at 4, etc. I think that is the modern approach to baseball, would be to do that. It's just not Gino's. I mean, we can debate whether he should. I can't imagine that's happening now.
Yeah, that's going to be that.
He's definitely old schooling it, where your best hitters are your 3 and 4 hitters.
Right. It is what it is. It is what it is. We'll see what happens. Maybe he might switch it up. You've seen Gino make some interesting moves this year, and I think he's doing a hell of a job, to be honest with you. So I think that I'm kind of default to him making some
and he's done a lot
adjustments if he has to.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of kind of gut feeling switches that seem to have been working. I think he's got a very good handle on this team. I think very different from the team from a couple of years ago where
Right.
we went to the Gainesville Regional and like UF went 0-2 and we should have easily handled it for there. We lost to USF and stuff. I think this team he seems to have a really good handle on when he makes these, because Renzo wasn't in the lineup 3 weeks ago and now he's starting.
Yeah.
He's playing well. It feels like Gino just has a good feel for this team. And so I mean, I know this is probably not popular around here. I kind of just trust him to handle this, and just like if he pushes a button, they seem to be.
It's weird
working.
to say because last year everyone was like, "Get rid of him." Now we're like, oh, "He's doing a great job."
I think I was the only one defending him last year, and they gave him a contract extension because I think look, he was going into like the last year of his contract. You can't just have him under no contract, and you also don't fire a coach for getting a national seed and losing 2 one-run games. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not.
Sure,
so what exactly do you want to do here? But I think there's an opportunity here to. This team just plays they play hard. They make a lot of mistakes while they're frustrated. They strike out too much. They make boneheaded running decisions it's just like it's a lot.
The 9th seed.
Yeah, and the pitching is not where it needs to be. But this team is tough and they have guts and they fight and they're never dead.
And they won 40 games doing that. So can you imagine they get really hot? I mean, that's
no, this team has potential, and Gino seems to know which buttons to push. Whether it's bringing Dario Gomez in to suicide squeeze, like he's got his hand on this team. I think he's gonna. If he makes a move, I would trust it. If he leaves the lineup as is, I would kind of trust it too at this point. I am curious about the pitching though, because we just don't have a lot. Like I thought it was weird that we went to. I know it's Wake Forest, but that we went to Walters on Saturday and then he was not available on Sunday. I'm like, you really need to bring him in with a 5-run lead against Wake Forest instead of saving him for the next.
You never know, man. You never know.
I think his view was like that Wake Forest win was like a scalp, and whatever happens on Sunday happens on Sunday. But for people looking at that and saying how we're going to approach this weekend, it's not anything the same because this is regionals. You play it differently. It's a different tournament format. I don't think he brings Walters in a 5-run game against Maine, for example. I know he's just like, no, you stay on.
And by the way, I don't think we're going to know the lineup or who's starting until Friday.
No, that was the case last year as well. Yeah. We were kind of speculating who might go when. I will say, just to kind of close out here a little bit, Rosario has had 2 unbelievably strong performances in the postseason in his career. He's pitched in regionals twice and been lights out both times. So maybe he's just, hey, this is his time to shine here.
Maybe it is, baby. Maybe it is. Make sure you guys watch us. We won't have a show tonight because of the Heat game. So no 6 Rings Canes tonight. We might just
we're gonna do baseball later in the week. We need a little bit of time to dig into some of these.
This is a baseball week, but we'll give you some football updates as well. We'll see what we do with that. But make sure you keep it locked.
There's buckets tomorrow, so if you're interested,
there's buckets tomorrow. So
there's always buckets. Tomorrow. Yes, but we'll I think Wednesday is what we're targeting to do, like kind of a big regional preview here. And also, we did pay a little lip service because we are lined up with Stanford. And that region is Stanford, San Jose State, Cal State Fullerton, and Texas A&M. So
that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. And if again, as mentioned in the chat, we answered it as well. If Stanford does not win that regional and we win ours, we would host Supers. So
correct.
So there's opportunity there to do some damage.
Make sure you guys keep a lock and check us out on Twitter at 6 Rings Canes. We'll have some more updates for you on there. Obviously the show tomorrow, buckets. You've got Wednesday, you've got baseball, and then we've got some Formula One stuff as well. So just make sure you keep it locked. Check us out, and
we'll be out at the light this weekend. So
and yes, make sure you come visit us. We'll be there this weekend for the regionals. Myself and Vish, and then you can say happy belated birthday to Vish. And that's it.
Let's not do that.
We'll see you guys later.
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.